Hey everyone, Kelly here. Today I have Megan Gillespie from Megan Gillespie's studio, and Megan and I are going to be chatting about how she created $30,000 of teaching revenue in the past 6 months. So, Megan, do me a favor, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about your studio and who you are as a teacher.
So I am Megan Gillespie. It's always great to be with you, Kelly. As you know, I think you are brilliant. uh, I am an opera singer and a voiceover actor, and my studio teaches singers, actors, and voiceover artists. I've been teaching for a little over 10 years now, and I have degrees from Manhattan School of Music in New York City. um, I love to teach. I love what I do. And Kelly, you made it possible.
Well, it's been a wild few months, and we've had a lot of really exciting changes happen for you. But tell me a little bit more about the studio and what makes you unique. Who do you really enjoy working with the most? Who is that ideal student that we're aiming for?
So, okay, so my studio is unique in that I not only teach how to sing, how to act, all of that, right? The basics through excellent technique with bel canto technique, Alexander technique, Meisner, Stanislavski, all that stuff. Um, but I also offer performance opportunities, and I offer to help find my students performance opportunities as well. And then on top of that, I mentally prepare all of my students to audition, to perform, to be in front of an audience, all of that good stuff. And a lot of that for me is based in them enjoying their own voice. I have found that, you told me to go do guest artist opportunities in high schools and other schools. And when I do, the biggest thing I've noticed is that students hate their voices. They hate how they sound. And so my biggest goal is to get my students to enjoy the sound they make, to love their own instruments so that they are confident when they step on stage. My ideal client is someone who practices. And honestly, you asked me this in the beginning, and it was like someone who wants to work with me.
Anyone that will pay me money.
Right. And then you were like, no, no, no. Who's your ideal client? And I was like, oh, I get to decide. And so in the last few months, like this is really morphed. So I know I told you something different in when we started working, but it's kind of morphed into this. And you can let me know what you think. So my ideal client is someone who practices. There's someone who adheres to the studio policies, someone who can afford my price point. They are ages 6 and up, and they want to perform eventually, even if they don't want to perform when they first meet me.
Love that. I love that. I think what's really important in for anyone that's listening to this and like, well, what do you mean it's changed and we get to choose our students and what does that look like? For every teacher, there is an ideal student or a few ideal students, right? Your voice teachers and your acting, or sorry, your voice students and your acting students may look a little bit different, right? Some things are shared, like the studio policy and wanting to perform, but some of those personality or the goals that they have can look different.
Mm-hmm.
However, for every student, there's an ideal teacher. So this isn't
Exactly.
necessarily just taking whatever student we can find, taking whatever student will pay us that will show up on time, but there are these deeper levels to it that not every teacher wants to focus on performance and not every student wants to perform ever.
Right.
So having this in mind for yourself that when you first sit down with a student, I know that you meet with potential students several times a week now.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk to them, we know exactly what we're looking for to give them a resounding yes or a resounding no and give them to a teacher that's a better fit for them if that's necessary. We do get a choice, just like our students get a choice too. Love it.
Absolutely.
I'm excited for you. So let's back up. I know we kind of hinted at this at the beginning, but we've been working together for a few months now. Before all of that, what did the studio look like and what did life look like?
Life was a little unmanageable, to be honest with you. I was working a whole bunch of jobs,
Mm,
all at once sometimes. And I only had a handful of students. And I think two of those students were every week I saw them. I also wasn't taking any time off. This, 2020, 21 was the first year that I took time off for me, which was amazing. Um, and Life was stressful and full of resentment because I was not having, or I was not setting boundaries with my students as far as my policy went. But also, my policy was kind of meh, and
yeah.
so in working with you, we've nailed that down, Um, yeah, life was a little unmanageable.
Say you were working a lot of jobs. Like how many
Yeah,
jobs we
about
talking?
five different jobs. It was, I was the choir master for a children's choir. I had a church job. I was working for a nonprofit. I was doing voiceover work, acting work, singing work. So I was singing for opera companies as well as orchestras and chamber orchestras, and then of course the studio.
And I think this is something a lot of musicians go through is we're looking to piece this together because we want to stay in music. And rightfully so. I mean, all of your work was in your performance practice or in the realm of being a musician or an artist. So they were all related.
Right.
But because you were piecing them together, it felt a little
Well, what
odd.
really felt unmanageable was I felt like I had to say yes to everything.
Mm,
But, now that I'm making enough money through teaching, I can pick and choose what I have time for, what I
absolutely.
will enjoy the most, um, who I want to work with, which is always a big deal, all of that. Yeah.
So in the studio, I know we mentioned already that you were frustrated with the policy, and we only had about two consistent students. You did have a few other students, but they were sporadic at best. You come maybe every other week, hopefully. And so we were only working a couple hours a week in actual teaching.
Right.
What was exciting to you about expanding the studio? Why was this a place that you wanted to put a little bit more time and energy and effort?
Um, So I had spent the last, I think, like 6 or 9 months before I met you, kind of interviewing for jobs and like, seeing what was out there. And of course, this was all during the height of the pandemic. And being incredibly frustrated because I know what I love to do and I know what I'm good at. I'm good at singing and I'm good at teaching and I love both of those things. So if I could lump those in together, that'd
Yep.
be ideal. And I had just uh, interviewed for a kind of permanent voiceover position. Um, and they said yes and they were training me and then I met you. And I was like, "Oh."
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And I still
So
work for them. Those are the 6 contracts I have coming up is with the voiceover that's consistent. But again, it's only consistent part of the year. Yeah.
and we're only taking those now because you want to, not
Right.
because we have to, and we're trying to piece that together in a million different ways.
Exactly.
So I know when I first talked to you, the goal was obviously a steady, stable income where we weren't piecing things together from different places and different times of the year and looking in a million different places for potential revenue sources. But the other thing that we were really focused on was a consistent schedule, including consistent flexibility. You
Yes.
are a performer, right? You're a strong teacher, but you're also a very active performer. So having the space to do that when those opportunities came forward was really important to you. So before our conversations, how are you trying to solve that? Or how are you trying to manage that in the studio? If you were doing this on your own, what was that going to look like?
Um, so I was one of those teachers who was paid per lesson.
Mhm.
Um, and most of the time it was like the student showed up and paid me.
Got it.
Um, which meant if they didn't show up, I had to chase them for that money if they didn't adhere to the 24-hour policy. Um, and it also meant that if I got an opera job for the summer or whatever for a month, something like that, where I had to be away, um, and I couldn't teach as many lessons as I uh, needed to. I then was missing out on money for an opportunity that would further my career. So that was not good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the frustration here, and I'm sure a lot of musicians can empathize with this, is you're trying to balance the different parts of who you are. You want to educate and share because you want to support other potential budding musicians and help them grow because it's exciting. You want a performance career because you went to music school and you got degrees and that was the goal and that was what was exciting. And so you want to exercise that expression as well. You don't want to have to choose.
Right.
And when we're trading exact dollar for minute, that can be really, really difficult. And it creates a lack of flexibility in our schedule because we haven't built the flexibility in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had students who were disappointed,
Mm,
because I also wasn't set up um, for like a long term, their long term in their minds was she teaches me every week for 52 weeks out of the year, of which there are only 52 weeks. So that left no flexibility, in their minds, in my mind. And it created that resentment that I was talking about. That was a big part of the resentment that I felt was, I have to, you know.
they expect this is their expectation. They expect me to show up every single week. There is no different expectation or communication. So there's no afforded flexibility.
Right.
Obviously, we're in a much different position now, which we'll get into, but having clear, clean expectations for both sides from the very first time you meet with a potential student allows us to create this stability and flexibility that we're talking about, where you don't teach 52 weeks a year now.
In structure comes freedom. It's so true. And no, I teach 36 weeks out of the year. My students are guaranteed 36 lessons, although this year I built in 40. So we'll see,
Yeah.
what happens. Um, but yeah, yeah. Within that structure comes a lot of freedom.
Now we're not chasing makeup lessons. And of course, on a monthly basis, if you were teaching 48 lessons a year, of course you'd be making more, but that's not the point here. The point is that your students are also choosing you because you're an active performer and
Right.
they
Yeah.
like that part of you. And so they
Right.
understand, it's clear, they're not disappointed when you cancel a lesson, or they're not disappointed when you say that you're taking off in 3 weeks because they knew that was coming. They were absolutely ready for that.
Yes, yes. Yeah, my clientele likes that I am an active opera singer and that I do,
Yeah.
films and commercials and TV and all of this stuff, and yeah, they enjoy that. They like to see me strive. I love to see them strive.
Mhm.
Yes, it's a
Well, and obviously the connections that you have benefit your students as well. They are
absolutely.
very, very well
That's
aware of that too.
I mean, that's definitely a part of what I offer is that, if they're serious and they're working and they're growing, that yes, of course, I will help them get work.
Definitely. Definitely. Now, you and I met, I think we mentioned this towards the beginning, about 6 months ago. I think through a Facebook group, I think.
Yes, I think yeah, uh-huh. I think I posted like I was thinking about this. I was like, how did we meet? And I was like, oh yeah, I think I posted that like generic like how do you guys find students on a consistent basis kind of question that like every
Yeah,
music studio teacher has,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So when we kind of connected and we exchanged a few messages, what initially piqued your interest about this program and this process?
You took a lot of time with me
Mm,
to explain what you offer, and you were very clear about it as well. So, like, you had a good idea of what your business model is, and that was very exciting to me because that, now I know. Like, if somebody is just like, oh yeah, come work with me, red flag, you know. But if they're like, these are the things I offer, this is how I get what I get, and also please go watch all these videos of these people who have been successful in my coaching program, like, okay, this person like not only knows what they're talking about, but they're actively wanting to see me do well is the other thing. You want your clients to succeed, and that's not only beautiful but encouraging, because like as a teacher, it's what we all want. We want our students to succeed. We want them to live a life of happiness and joy. Yeah. So
And,
that
and
that
this
was what
type,
it was. You took your time with me,
I
and also
appreciate that.
you had a very clear idea of like how all of this works. The business model was solid.
I appreciate that. This type of recommendation, right? These interviews, this is what we want you to have for your studio. That was part of what we talked about at the beginning, was getting these testimonials and building up the proof, and the efficacy of your teaching is a really important piece of this. But you're right. I mean, obviously, I want you guys to succeed and to see this growth, but this is how my business thrives. This is also how your business thrives. I run
Right.
this the same way that we run your studio. We're applying the same principles here, where if you can get proof and people are willing to sit down and do an interview with you or write testimonials for you, then that's how your business continues to grow. And if that doesn't exist, then maybe we shouldn't be teaching, right? If there's not an actual outcome, a good positive outcome for your students, then we need to evaluate either how the service is being delivered or the efficiency and effectiveness of that service. So it's important that we translate this to a studio. I get
Yeah.
that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What
Same deal with
results?
opera companies. If you're not getting rehired,
Yes,
there's a reason.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry. What
What
was your
results have you seen now in the last 6 months? I know we've had a lot of big growth and change. We mentioned some big numbers at the beginning, but what does it look like now?
I do just want to say one more thing
Oh, please do.
to what you asked, which was the reason that I hired you, the reason was how you closed with me. And I looked at that close, how you closed, and I thought, if she can teach me to do this, like I will have a successful studio. And you did, and look at me now. So just wanted to say that your close was so thought out. It was so on point, and I was like, okay, if I can learn how to do this, like we're set. So
I
anyway,
appreciate that.
sorry.
I
What was your
appreciate
question?
that. No, that's a very good point. And part of this, what we're talking about in this process for you, is that you do a consultation, right? And every potential student that you're meeting with, we're talking about your pedagogical thesis
Hmm.
and what you're providing to them, the plan for them of exactly what they're going to go through and working with you, and then what services you're providing and how you're delivering that service, so that it's a very clean process and that communication is transparent. We're setting those expectations and everyone is on the same page. There's no surprise about the policies. There's no surprise about their pricing or what's included in that studio. You want it to be very organized so that someone who, especially the price point that you're charging, we're looking at, what, $150 an hour right now for
Hmm.
lessons. If that's the price point that we're going for, it has to be polished, organized, professional. It should be that at any price point, but especially when we're looking at increasing our rates. So
Yep. 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 Yep.
100%, I'm on the same page. Tell me a little bit about the results. I mean, we're talking about your sales process and how things have worked so far for you, but what has this yielded in your studio?
This is literally my favorite thing to talk about. um,
Oh, you cracked me
so
up.
I no longer work with people I don't want to work with. I set boundaries easily, and I do that by pointing to my policies. I have more time to commit to my clients than ever before. And then when I'm not teaching, I can be truly present for the other activities and people in my life. That is such a huge gift that you've given me. Um, my life is super full of people and art that I enjoy, and it's because of how my studio is set up. Um, Very specific things that have changed is I make more money than I ever thought possible, and it's only going up like every month. Um, I have more ideas now than I ever did before of like what I want to do with my teaching, with my clients, with my students. Um, I have a community to reach out to, and like I'm involved in NATS, the National Association of Teachers of Singers, but the community that you've built is invaluable. Um, uh, I've made changes in my policy that really help me uh, use my time as wisely as possible. Um, Changes to the makeup policy, changes to how, oh my gosh, how I'm paid. Like, never ever thought that um, monthly tuition was possible. I was thinking about this. I had one client in the last 10 years pay me monthly, and it was a pain because nobody else paid me that way, and I was having trouble like keeping track. Um, but now everybody's on monthly tuition, and they all pay uh, via credit card. That I never had before. I never had a calendar where people could go look at when they have lessons, when they don't. Um, so much has changed. So much has been just the best outcome possible for me. Um, and I think one of the biggest out and the best outcomes for me is that I've made a huge attitude change in how I view a lot of what goes on in my business, especially things like losing clients. Um, when I lose a client now, it's like, I'm so sorry to see you go. Let me fill that spot with somebody else. It's no longer and it's not like that sounded awful, but you know what I mean, right? It's no longer
Yeah.
an identity crisis
Right.
where, I'm feeling abandoned and
Hmm.
like people are leaving me because and getting all
Yeah.
involved in my head,
Yeah.
which was what I did before. Um, and I think actually this happens to a lot of singing teachers
Yeah.
because our voice is in our bodies. And
Right.
so we have this idea that our voice is our identity, and then, on top of that, our teaching is our identity as
Yeah.
well. And so if we lose a client, oh, people don't like me, when in fact, that is hardly ever what is actually going on. You know,
Right.
people leave for all sorts of reasons,
Mhm.
and now I just don't take it personally. I just
Right.
don't take it personally, and it's because of you. I am able to do that and like make these attitude changes of I live an abundant life. And a life of abundance means I am abundant in health. I am abundant in clients who want to work with me and I want to work with them. I am abundant in money. I am abundant in time. Yeah, it's been a huge change for me. Huge.
I'm so not only thrilled with the results that you've had, but so proud of you because you've put a lot of work and time into this and a lot of energy into this and ensuring that the conversations that we're having between you and I are not just about getting you students. I mean,
No.
that's great. That's wonderful. And we spent, especially at the beginning, quite a bit of time around that. But we have worked on a lot of mindset
Oh
and
yeah.
finding this passion that you have for everything that you do can be a positive passion all of the time.
And yes, and then also like hand in hand with that, went how you taught me to, or teach me, continue to teach me how to communicate,
Mm,
not only with clients but with other teachers, and the things that you explain, like the set language that you have is so helpful. I mean, I come to you on a monthly basis going, hey, I need language for this thing. And you're like, here you go. That's just amazing because it then teaches me, like, okay, not only next time this is how I'm going to use this language, but moving forward, I can continue to use this language in all sorts of different ways, this communication.
you've really become independent, especially in the last few months, where
That's another thing that
when
I
things
absolutely.
happen, it's not like you said, it's not a crisis, You have immense tools and confidence in how to handle that. And seeing that change in you has been really exciting.
Yeah, that is absolutely a huge gift. Um, and, not all coaches and not all teachers teach that way,
Mm.
which is, because that's how I grew up too. All of my teachers were like, you're going to need me for the rest of your life. And, like, that's not my way of teaching either. I want my students to eventually feel like they can go off and run their own voices in their own lives. And, you are a big part of showing me how that works.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. You've had incredible success. And I want to just kind of run through some of those numbers. I know that you mentioned at the beginning we had two consistent students. In the last 6 months, again, at a very high price point. I mean, we're talking about $450 a month at present. That's changing, but at present, that we're putting students on that subscription model. And I think we've added about 20 new students
Hmm.
over the course of this. Now, an important factor here is this ideal student and the ideal client that you want to be working with. So we've added 20 students, but we're not working with 20 students right now. How many students are you maintaining in the studio at present?
I have 14 right now.
Perfect. Why is that? When we talk about the ideal student or the ideal client, maybe we bring some in, or especially maybe brought some in that maybe weren't the exact right fit. What do you see now, or what are you looking for in a student relationship where maybe after a little while we decide it's not the right fit and we're making adjustments?
Um, well, okay. So I did have, I think, like two, maybe three students
Mm-hmm.
who um, departed because they were on a short term. Like I knew they were going to leave. One, went off to San Jose. She's doing great now. Fabulous. She was a teacher at San Jose. Phenomenal. We knew she was leaving. I had another student who she saw the recital and was so overwhelmed by the people who performed that she decided, oh, I don't think I'm doing enough practice to get there. And so she was like, I want to do this, but I want to do it when I can commit to the practice level
That's
that
fair.
these
Yeah,
other clients
that's
are
fair.
doing. Um, and then I also I made some studio policy changes
Mhm.
that I do think kind of scared a student away, but only one. The rest of them were like, yeah, on board. And they actually, to be honest with you, they love the change that I've made. These students cannot wait for the studio class at the end of the month. And this is only the third month of us doing this. I've had three students reach out to me this month and be like, I'm so excited for the studio class. Can I bring a friend?
Oh my gosh. That's wonderful. So let's dive into this because this is something that's really unique to your studio, what you're doing right now. Your policy is no makeups.
Well, right, yeah.
It's no makeups.
They're
Right.
not going to get an individual lesson makeup.
Correct.
Instead, they
Yeah.
get a makeup lesson credit, which is used towards that month's studio class. And the studio class dates are all on the calendar so they can stick them in their schedule and be ready to go for those classes. All the studio classes are on Zoom, so it's super easy for all of them to attend, whether they come in person or on Zoom. They can all come to the studio class. And then if they did miss a lesson that month, they get to work with me individually. And if they did not, they know that they're probably likely to get called upon to demonstrate, but that they are guaranteed to observe. And it's a community building thing, They all
Absolutely.
get to chat and we play games, musical games, acting games, all sorts of really fun stuff. This last class in February was so fun. We just had the best time, and I'm very excited for this upcoming one because I have a new game that I want to play with them that I think is they're gonna love.
That's awesome. So this is this freedom and this stability that you're talking about. Your students are on auto pay. There is no refundable tuition.
No.
They either have to show up every single week at the scheduled time or they need to communicate with you so they can get that makeup credit and attend the studio class. But we don't have, if every single student canceled one lesson throughout the month, you're not responsible now for 14 individual makeup lessons in times that you might not normally teach, or trying to fit them in and squeeze them in different places. What has that done for your stress?
Oh, it's beautiful. Um, so it's completely deleted the
Mm.
stress that I had over that. Because while the students still ask, you
Mhm.
know, oh, can you move my lesson? Now I can just point to the policy and say, no, with the caveat of, absolutely, just remember, the studio class is at the end of the month, it's on this date. Please know that if you do decide to cancel this lesson, that you will perform at the studio class. But that's given me such freedom in being able to build the studio more, because now I really do have like set hours that I work, that I teach, excuse me, that I teach, and then admin, of course, is something else. Um, but those set hours now are literally for the student that they're for, and I'm not moving students around, and that takes up so much brain energy and time, and I'm just so glad to be done with that.
It's awesome. And this is something that I know is more unique right now in a lot of studio structures. This is not something that everyone's doing. So I appreciate you sharing that, because it's, I think, helpful for a lot of people to just hear that there are possibilities, that you don't have to guarantee those makeup lessons. There's other options on the table that you can take advantage of if it's the right fit for your studio. Absolutely.
Right,
There's so much room
right.
there. There's so
Yeah,
much
and
room
some
there.
teachers, they don't enjoy teaching group classes. So,
Mhm.
this model may not be for them, but, for those of us who do, it's so fun. So fun.
I love that. I love that. So we've talked a lot about the stress reduction and the improvement there. We talked about adding students. So we now have a set schedule. We also have very predictable income because everyone is paying on a monthly basis on auto pay. Right now in the studio, what are we roughly averaging in a month of income?
About $5,000.
Wonderful. When we first met, that was closer to about 1,000. I think maybe
Yeah.
just slightly over. So we've added some really good income, but that
And then
went
some months it was
fast.
under.
Well, and we went fast in this growth. So the first, I think about 3 months, you said that was how much in revenue?
$15,000. Yeah.
15,000. Okay.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
wonderful. So we've had fast growth.
Hugely
So
fast. Yes.
let's look back to the very beginning one more time. When we first decided to work together, what was the thing that kicked you over the fence? What was the deciding factor for you?
Um, well, uh, I mean, definitely the amount of time that you spent talking with me was very helpful. And then the close was, I was sold, like ready to go. I'm ready to do this. But I think the lead up to that was also that, um, despite like not making a whole lot of money, I had managed to pay down a lot of my credit card debt, or all of my credit card debt was gone. And so when I met you, I was like, "Oh, I will go into debt to work with this woman." I really strongly believe in her, and her business model. And I think it's time for me to invest in myself and my business. And so if I have to go into credit card debt to do this, fine, because obviously I can dig myself out of that again. But then, like, the first month of my working with you, yeah, I paid you off. Like, paid it off. Like, I was, you paid for yourself in a month. Um, and so obviously, we didn't do that, but but it was possible. It was like, oh my gosh, like Kelly literally paid for herself within 1 month of me working with her. So, now moving forward, like this absolutely is going to work. But it was, you know, me doing the work. Like, I had
Absolutely.
to put a lot of time and effort into, watching the videos, which are now all on Kajabi, and that thing is amazing. Um, asking as many questions as possible,
Absolutely.
coming to all of the Zoom meetings so that I could ask questions, sending you emails when I really needed help and what I thought was immediately, of which now that's like not even a thing. I'm like, she gets back to me when she gets back to me because nothing in life is a crisis. Um, uh, but putting in that work initially, it was a lot of hours, but it was so worth it because, now only 6 months later, half a year later, and I like do half of the work that I have done. And you've also encouraged me to do that because I am so like go-gettery,
Hmm.
I'm so passionate, so dedicated,
Absolutely.
that when I come up with all these ideas of like how I want the studio to grow and what I think is possible, you're like, just hang on. Like,
No
just
one has more ideas than Megan.
just do the thing that is working now. Like solidify that and then we can move on. And I was like, you're so right, Kelly. Okay.
That has been a lot of our work because you are just this amazing ball of energy and you have so many fun thoughts and exciting new ideas and projects and passions in life that you want to express, not just in music and not just for your students, but we've talked about projects for other music teachers, projects for other singers. We've talked about opportunities for courses and classes, and you have all of these other things in the works. But really focusing you in on completing one thing so that it's done well, it's effective, it's completed, and you have that sense of accomplishment has been a really big focus for us. And now we're translating that to other areas and we're seeing that same focus and drive in one, maybe two things at a time,
Right. Yeah.
really mean that everything is taking off quickly because you've got that knowledge and that skill set and that background already established. It's
Yes. And
really
I
exciting.
I am a personality that's like, why isn't this happening now? And it's like, okay, yeah, but like all in good time, right? Just make sure that the thing that's working is really solid before I move on. And that's
Absolutely.
been very helpful.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And I also have to say that you're super nice about telling me things more than one time. Because we've definitely had like two or three Zooms where I was like, I have this idea. And you're like, great. But, and then
I
I
love
harken
this.
back. I'm like, oh yeah, she said this to me. I have to like take that in.
I love this idea. Give yourself 24 hours to think about how this is going to fit into your life.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
an important step. Is not that we're not moving forward because you have all these wonderful ideas. We are moving forward on all
Oh
of
yeah.
them, but prioritizing them has been a really important step too.
Yes.
So I guess my big question is, do you recommend that other people take advantage of this program and move forward? And if so, who do you think is a good fit?
100%. Anyone who wants to build a studio should work with Kelly.
Appreciate
However,
that.
I think the people who benefit the most from your program are those who um, want to change. They actually want to make a change. They're willing to listen. They're willing to not only listen, but then implement the things that you suggest. That's a big one. Um, and then the second part of that is, of course, those who are willing to put in the work, because just like anything, just like lessons, if you don't practice, you don't get the the outcome that you would like. Um, and it also depends on how much they practice. So, if they're only practicing 5 minutes a day, that's how much they'll progress. So, like, if I only put it, if, in the beginning, if I had only put in 5 minutes a day into your program, we
Yeah,
would not be sitting here right now.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's that combination of wanting things to change, being, willing to make the changes, and then how much time can I contribute to this coaching program to, make the changes as fast as I want to make them. For me, that was very fast.
We had very big immediate goals, which was wonderful. It was wonderful. Why should someone that's listening to this right now, if they're like, okay, I think I am a go-getter and that I am ready and I've decided that this is the next step. why should they take action now instead of waiting a little bit longer to start implementing some of these changes?
Um, Honestly, they should take action now because they're ready. They're ready to make the change. Um, they want it bad. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Interestingly enough, the three voice teachers that I've talked to in the last few days, I think their biggest concern was that they're spending money
Mm-hmm.
on themselves and their business. Um, and one of those lovely teachers even said to me, "You have to spend money to make money." And I was like, "Well, I mean, yes, but it's really about I have to spend money on the thing, the only thing that is going to make me money." And with this proven business model that you have and your brilliant mind, I love to call Kelly brilliant because she is. Um, it's I mean, I don't want to say it's guaranteed to work, but if you put in the work, it's guaranteed to work. So
I appreciate that.
if you don't do the work, it's not guaranteed to work, but that's pretty much everything in life,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Um, so yeah, if you know, if you're tired, if this this client is tired of not achieving the way that they think they can, man, now is the time to take action. Don't wait. Why are you going to wait? I was willing to go into debt to do this and found out very easily, oh, I actually don't have to go into debt to do this. I can just earn more money. So don't wait. Don't put it off, you know? I but I was not willing to wait any longer to succeed, It's something that I am good at and love.
Absolutely. I know we talked about this practice, and I love this analogy that you practice your instrument and you also practice your business and the
Oh yeah.
skills and the things that we have to know how to do effectively and efficiently. And I want to touch on this too, that it's not just about practicing more than everybody else,
Oh no.
right? We're not talking about like working harder than everybody else. Just because you like out post on Facebook does not mean that your business automatically grows. But a lot of this is about efficiency. So I guess my follow up to that for you would be, you were ready and you were tired of waiting and you wanted the results. Do you think that in the last 6 months you could have accomplished what you've accomplished on your own?
Oh no. No, no, no. But I didn't have the mindset first of all, and then secondly, the tools.
Hmm.
I just didn't have them. And that's actually something I want to talk to you about is like you should be working for a university like teaching this if you would be willing. Like Manhattan School of Music where I came from could so benefit from
Thank you.
from this as like a class because I just, I came out of that with a master's degree in music, but I didn't know how to run a studio. So I was taking advice from other teachers, from my parents who have never run a music studio in their lives and don't even sing. Um, from just random people. And like, it was so unhelpful. And then I get to you and it was like, these are, these are the steps. These are the tools. If you use them, things will go well. Um, and yeah, honestly, if I hadn't put as much time in, I just wouldn't be making as much money as I am now. And it would have taken me more time to understand the tools that I use now very easily. So it's not that, if they're not like 100% dedicated and spending 20 hours a day on this coaching program, it's not going to work. That's not the idea. It's that, however, and I was in that moment of like, I don't want to live a life of burnout anymore when I met you. And so it was like, I'm not gonna perpetuate this burnout thing. And so I'd work on your stuff for as long as I felt like I needed to that day. And then I took time off. Oh, I wasn't going to the pool anymore when I met you because it was cold. But I was doing things like, oh, I'm going to take a walk or I'm going to,
Yeah.
read a book or watch some TV or like call a friend, like whatever. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like I was spending, every moment of every day working on your stuff. But the the amount of time that I did spend was very dedicated. It was very focused.
Mhm.
And I was just picking up as much as I could and then keeping that information as well. So it wasn't like it was in one ear and out the other, you know, kind of like I talked to you about saying the same thing twice on two different Zooms. I try to do that as little as possible.
But part of this is consistency, and you were willing to put in that consistent effort. It's just like
Yes.
practicing. It's not necessarily the length of time, it's more about frequency and being willing to do something more days than you don't.
Oh yeah, yeah. Just like a lesson. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, I said it before and I'll say it a million more times. I'm so proud of you. It's been a journey, it's been a whirlwind, and I'm so excited to see the continued growth because there's so many more things that we are working on. We can do that. Be on the lookout. Megan's got some resources, maybe even for you all coming shortly, but we're very excited about that. And I'm so excited to work with you, to continue working with you. And I very much appreciate all of your positive feedback and the information that you've been willing to share today. It's very helpful.
I so appreciate you. I mean, having a woman, a female, who is as smart as you are, who is as meticulous as you are, is very much an inspiration to me, who is also a woman and brilliant and meticulous.
Thank
It's
you.
great to know you. It's great to work with you. You're also easy to work with. I mean, that's been also a real joy is that, you know, you set very clear boundaries and it's very easy to then just be like, "Yep, this is how we do things."
I appreciate that. I really do. And I'm so glad that not only do I get to say that you're a client, but also a friend. And I'm very thankful for that relationship. So thank you.
Me too.
If someone wants to learn more about you and all of your brilliant work and all of the amazing things that you have coming, where can they find you and where can they find more information about you?
Megan Gillespie Mezzo, MEZZO.com is my website. Facebook is Megan Gillespie's Studio. Instagram and TikTok is at Megnificent_lessons. Oh, yes, we
And
want
she's
that.
wonderful on Instagram and TikTok. You got to follow her. She's got great teaching content, but also just high entertainment value. She's wonderful.
So true. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you again for being so open and willing to share today. I greatly appreciate that. I know everyone listening does too. If you're looking for more information, please find Megan. She's got so many fun resources to share, and I know that you can take advantage of it. Otherwise, I thank you all for your time and for listening today, and I'll talk to you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Hire Kelly if you're ready. Do it. It works. It works.
Oh, thank you.